Welcome to the Musar video blog. Last week we spoke about the idea that not everything is that important. I'd like to tell you a story about this idea. There was a couple, they had a number of children, and the husband was a real stickler. Everything had to be just right, and if things weren't on time and in the right place, he'd get all upset. And the wife would always say to him, "Ze lo chashuv," it's not important. And he'd get, "It is important, it is important." She'd go, "Ze lo chashuv," it's not important. And this was an ongoing conflict between the two of them. He was always get upset, uptight, and she would always say, "Ze lo chashuv," it's not important. It turns out she was expecting. And they lived in New York City, and it's common in New York City in the summertime that the families go to the Catskill Mountains because it's cooler and more comfortable there, and the husbands stay behind in the city, and they work and they come up on the weekends. So that's what they did. They had their place, their bungalow in the Catskill Mountains, and he would come up on weekends. And it happened one time that in the middle of the week, she calls him up and she says, "I need the checkbook." And of course, being the meticulous one with all details in place like they're supposed to be, he takes the checkbook, he puts it in a bag, he puts it in the car, he's ready to give it to her. On Friday, he goes up to the mountains, takes the bag, gives her the checks. Here they are. Okay, fine. Stays the weekend, goes back to the city, comes back the next weekend, and she had placed the checks in the bag, in the room, on a doorknob. He comes back a week later, they're still in the same place. She hasn't even taken them out of the bag yet. Here she makes a big deal, she needs the checks. And he brings them and he does everything he's supposed to, and she just doesn't do anything about it. And he was going to say something, but he said, "You know what? She's just going to get upset with me. She's going to say, 'Ze lo chashuv,' it's not important. Like, don't make a big deal about everything. It's not important." So he decides to keep quiet. He comes back the next week, again, same pattern. Goes to the city, comes back for the weekend. Again, the checks are in the same place, sitting in the bag on the doorknob. They haven't been touched. And he's like burning up. "What is this? I brought those checks. What'd you ask me for if you don't need them?" But he hears the words in his mind, "Ze lo chashuv," it's not important. Okay, he's not going to start up again. But, I mean, it's really bugging him. I mean, come on. I mean, you know, if you don't need them, you don't need them. If you need them, then take them and use them. Come on. This week after week, same thing, and they're just sitting there in the bag in the same place. She hasn't even taken them out of the bag. Turns out one week he gets a phone call in the middle of the week. Emergency phone call. Your wife's been taken to the hospital. He jumps into the car, he races to the mountains. He gets there, goes straight to the hospital. When he gets to the hospital, they say, "We're sorry to tell you, your wife passed away." Broken. He goes back to to their bungalow. He sees the checks in the bag, sitting in the very same place. Fast forward a few months, in their home back in the city. We zero in on the bedroom. What do we see there? We see the bag with the checks in his bedroom, hanging on the doorknob. Across the bag, he has pasted the words, "Ze lo chashuv," it's not important. Sometimes it takes tragedy, it takes trauma for us to realize that certain things just aren't that important, and it's not worth making a big deal about it. It's more important to cherish the relationships that we have, to appreciate all the blessings that we have, and not get derailed by focusing on the pettiness. Let's not wait for tragedy. Let's take the lesson to heart. It's not worth getting upset about all these little things that we let bother us. Ze lo chashuv. It's not important.